All right, here we go. Overdrive off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, and up on TSN 4. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan.
What's up?
What's up? How
Feeling
we feeling?
good, feeling loose and driving. You know why?
Yeah. Why?
I experienced the benefit of what I call non-moose behavior today, and my back is feeling better because for years, whatever it is, since I was 15, lower back right would tighten up a little bit. And there's this kind of move where you got to lie on your side and put your leg over, and the guy kind of like
snap it back in. Yeah,
he just gives it a little jolt, and then back in you go. Get into the moose years, dude. It was like this climbing across a bouncy castle to try to like get this thing into position, and it would never.
Yeah.
You would never hear that like snap.
You never feel that like jolt, right? Like
no,
right.
you never feel
Rubbery.
like
A lot of rubber.
Dude, and I knew not one guy wanted to insult me by saying, we can't penetrate. Like you can't, there's too much there. And it never cracked for years, like 2-3 years, however long I was at Moose. Today, boom, you're good.
Wow.
He's back. He's
That's
back.
The difference,
wow,
right?
the physio's loving you. Was that like a chiropractor? That sounds more like a chiropractor move.
Yeah,
Life
just
coaching
kind of
kind
like
of.
the guy I go see. But I got
Yeah.
a bunch of different guys, but one is I know I need that one kind of. I had a bunch of different things I had worked on, but that one I'm like, I got to try now and see if it works. Because I'm telling you, seeing that guy try to just fold that thing over and the barrel was into the.
So you're saying like you're giving us a visual that there has been times before when you were bigger, we'll call it.
Yeah,
and
you lean on your side,
leaning
and your
on- No, I know.
T-shirt, your
Leg up.
T-shirt comes up, and your boiler flops out, and and my legs were like the size of Andre the Giant's, and it was just like, I know that this will not happen, and I see a bunch of different guys for my back, and every time they're like, they just can't seem to get that one. And I'm
Do you
like,
think they knew it beforehand?
Dude,
Do you think
of
they had judged the book
course.
by its cover, took one look at you and said, this isn't going to work, but I'll waste my time and pretend and just say, something's a little off here.
And
try.
by the way, not just wasting time, like a full beat on sweat trying to fold that thing over and press it down. And every time it was like, just can't seem to get that one snap, crackle, pop there.
I love
don't
it.
know
Well,
why.
we're back.
Jesus.
Okay, new
We're
back,
back,
who'd is. Yeah, I love it, man. That's good to hear. Everything's coming along for you. I mean, it's tough. We're going to Montreal next week. We're going to get a ton of people that will see us and say, "Wow, look at the O-Dog. He looks great." And that's Duffy and I were saying it the other day in our little cart conversations. You know, we're like, yeah, he's really got it together, man. It seems like a lifestyle move. He's really committed, and it's a good sign. Now you got the chiropractor working, the physio working in your direction.
It's all coming together. It's all coming together
That's
nicely.
great. Yeah, I wonder if you're inspired by, camps opening up. Maybe that's what it was. It's like this, your body, you're having like PTSD back when you were, playing in the NHL. You're like, I got to make sure I'm in shape here.
Dude, it was a
love
lot
it.
more frightening than that. When I met the life coach and he said, come here, it was like playing days. I want to speak to you in my office. And his scale was in there. And he's like, before we even step foot in that gym, I want you to climb on that thing. I go, man, I usually do this. He goes, I don't want to forget about, eat breakfast, this and that before. Climb on that.
Terrifying.
And that, dude,
I
that
know
thing
that feeling,
flashed
man.
three
How did it
bills,
go?
and
Yep.
I ran in and started cracking iron.
You saw a number that you didn't like. You saw
Yes, 3 bills. It was
you
3
saw
bills.
3 to start, and you were like, that is unacceptable.
That's it, man. That is it, and it'll never happen again.
Okay.
Never.
Well,
good for you.
that's good to hear, man, because you're well down the way. You got the back feeling good, and we're ready for a big show today. And
Yeah.
a lot of anticipation because I've been working hard, man. I got my top 5 list today. Hazy be listed later this afternoon.
Was it like, did you have to scratch the head? Were you like, did you go into a Aaron Rodgers dark room for
Yes,
that? Or
I needed one. I've been, honestly, ever since you gave me this homework
you've
a
been
couple
stressing
days
about
ago,
it.
I've been stressing over it because – listen, the Leafs have changed a number of things here, but a lot of it is similar, and a lot of it you really got to be a believer, and every team in the league is doing this right now. We talked about this earlier in the week. Every team shows up and goes, if this breaks that way, if we get good play out of that guy, if he's healthy, like you can visualize it that everyone's going to have a great season, and in reality that's not going to happen, and we're not sure exactly what's going to happen with this Maple Leaf team, but we're fairly confident they're going to have a good regular season and they're going to be a good team, right? And they got a lot of talent. We're back into the line combinations on Twitter era, which I love. That means they're back on the ice because everyone's trying to jump over everyone else about the line combos and who's playing with who and what do you make of this, and Willie's. I don't think he took a shot at Sheldon today. I think he was joking around. But Willie was playing in the middle of the ice today and, said after the skate that he told Berube, and he and Berube had a conversation, if we're going to do this, you got to give me more than a game or two.
Yeah.
It's just a complete waste of time if you're going to play Nylander up the middle of the ice for a week of camp and one preseason game and say, screw it. You got to give him more time than that. And
so what are you saying more time, Bri? Is you saying, let's give him the preseason, or are you saying give him the preseason and give him 10 games?
I think I'd treat him almost like it's a rookie deal kicking in. Like give him the first 9 games. I would commit to it right now. You're playing center. Get around that mindset. You can probably speak to it. You've played both in your career. Like you played, largely wing throughout your career, but in junior you would have played center. I think when you got to the NHL, you played some center. And it is a mentality. You have to know where you're at, man. Like you had to know, using like an offensive line analogy. If you think you're playing left guard, but then you show up at the rink and they say you're playing left tackle, that's different. Like you got to know where you're at.
Lavi crushed my dreams when I tried to make a comeback. I went back to Carolina. Justin Williams blows his Achilles. I'm like, I'm probably going to make this team on right wing. Yeah. Lavi comes up to me and goes, we're going to put you at center in this training camp. I'm like, Lavi. Mm-hmm. When you're on a PTO, you don't have a leg to stand on. And I was like, okay, I guess.
You knew. Like at that point, you knew. You're like, that's it, right?
There's optimism. I guess I could.
No, that's what that was my attitude. I did not want to play center. Like I had played right wing for so many years. I'm like, that's my position. But when you're on a PTO, you don't say, hey, I don't want to play center. You're like, okay, I guess I'll do it. Like that's the only thing I come up with to say. It's a big difference. I wanted to play with a talented centerman. That's how I felt I could do my business best.
Right, and that's reasonable. And again, that's a legitimate question in terms of how Nylander, I guess, is going to handle this. And I don't know what to make of it day one. Like I think where Pacioretty was lined up is kind of interesting. People are pointing that out. I had a couple of people texting me almost immediately saying, "You see, he's on a line with Holmberg and Grabenkin." Who I'm not sure either guy project to really make the team or play. And if you're Pacioretty, I guess that's kind of what you're just talking about. It's like you're 35, PTO, you've had some injuries. Give me a shot here. Put me with Tavares. Can you give me a shot out of the gate and play me with Willie or something like that? And
there are some philosophies in the league, guys, where there's some philosophies where some guys will say, a lot of times you're as good as the guys you go over the boards with.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, what do you want to put them with those guys? That's fine, but what are you expecting to see? Some flashes of, I don't know. Just, it's a big difference, man, of who you go out on the ice with.
You're 100% right, but the reason why I'm saying I don't think you start him high in the lineup, he's got to start over here. Like there are guys ahead of him on the depth chart, ahead of him for opportunity. And
health alone, Jamie.
Well, you're right, but what I'm saying is he's starting from square one with this organization. I don't think anything is given; it's earned. It doesn't mean that a week from now, if he's two exhibition games under his belt and he looks pretty good, and like, hey, you know what? Let's give him more opportunity. But right now, if you ask me what is Max Pacioretty, well, he used to be a hell of a player. Now, I think they're just going to let him kind of settle in. To me, if you put him higher in the lineup, that's more pressure. That's this guy's getting the opportunity. This guy hasn't played hockey in 2 years for the most part. I think you ease him into it, you hide him in plain sight, and then 2 games from now, a week and a half from now, maybe you start mixing him in higher in the lineup if he looks comfortable and if you believe he can play higher in your lineup. That's the way I look at it.
I think that's a really good point, and I think that's probably how they're approaching it, because you're right. If you throw him on a line with Matthews immediately, it's like,
What's going on here?
This guy, why is he on a PTO?
Yeah,
like, why didn't
exactly.
you sign the guy to a 1-year deal at bigger money? How did this work out where he just steps in and he's with the big guys? I think you got to allow him to ease in. I think, hide him in plain sight, like you said. And the Leafs are trying to establish that, like, you got to earn your way on. Like Cowan, Easton Cowan's, further down the lineup. And that's natural. And I'm sure that's the way Craig Berube is approaching it, too. Berube's kind of an old school guy. I think he's a more modern coach than people maybe give him credit for. But he is a guy who's been around the league for a long, long time and probably understands that. Like, the impact of where you are on the whiteboard, it can ring out a little bit. Like, you don't want heads to explode. You don't want people to start looking around within the room thinking, why is this guy here? Why is that guy there? Has he earned it? Whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that is something that's factored in here. And I think ultimately with Pacioretty, it really is simply about his health. Like, can you skate well enough? If you can, he's going to be on the team. Where he plays, they'll have to find out. But can you skate? Because he's not here to hit and fight and be physical, and he can defend, he can kill penalties. He's done that a lot throughout his career. But ultimately, a lot of that was driven by the fact that he is such a good skater, powerful skater, and a guy that can impact the game when he does that. So really, which line he's on is probably irrelevant as long as he's out there and moving and is agile and looks like a guy who's comfortable in his own skates. And if he does that, I'm sure the Leafs have an understanding, and Pacioretty does. You'll be a part of this team.
Well,
and you got to find out where you're going to play.
That's why a weekend, if this guy's out there skating around like Forrest Gump in the stilts, like you're like, you're gone. But I don't think that's the case. I saw a couple snippets today. I wasn't at the rink, but I saw a couple snippets today. He looked comfortable. This guy knows how to play hockey.
Yeah, exactly. He's a vet. He's been in the league forever.
Exactly. So I still think you just kind of ease him in, give him an opportunity. And that opportunity, I know the training camp isn't a month long. That's nowadays, it's September 19th today, and they're into it right away. But he's going to get games, and that's where in a game you can push him up in the lineup. I don't think you push him up in the lineup in practice. And I'm curious to see what he looks like, but I'm also curious to see what Nick Robertson looks like. What other players on the left look like as well. My guy, Bobby McMahon.
Bobby McMahon,
like that's to me, Matthew Nice. Has he come back more mature, like feeling a lot more like an everyday player? That's where it's interesting for me. And, Willie down the middle. I think you give Willie – I think that's a 20-game. Like, it's not a, hey, preseason.
You're talking regular season. I agree.
I'm saying I think you got to give him a long run there to know
and get
what
the
you
answer
have.
now. So that you don't do this every single year. The guy shows up at camp. Oh, I'm trying center. Okay, cool. Get your answer now. Like, 100%. Obviously, Keefe was against it. Keefe didn't want it. And that's fine. He was entitled to that. He was the coach. He could make that decision. It does feel as if Brad Treliving has somewhat of an impact on this because I'm pretty sure he was bullish on the idea last year. And maybe that was a part of the discussion when Berube came in. Berube is going to have carte blanche, I'm sure, but probably on the same page as the guy who just hired him. And I think that's reasonable to say, get to U.S. Thanksgiving, playing up the middle of the ice, unless it's a complete disaster for whatever reason. And maybe it's Willie that ends up walking into his room and goes, I don't feel comfortable here. I can't pull it off. I don't feel like I'm helping this team out. And then it might change. But give him 15, 20 games and then make a call and put it to bed. Either he's going to play center predominantly moving forward or he's going to the wing and you're not going to do this song and dance again. Right. But that's the beauty of it. You don't have to have that answer right now. And they're probably a good enough team to experiment something like that. Yeah. And, there's been noise around here, but everyone's arrived and everyone's healthy. Like you look around the league, this Jeremy Swayman stuff, we talked about it yesterday. Still, it's hanging over the Bruins. Thatcher Demko spoke today. I did not like what I heard from Thatcher Demko.
Oh, no. What the hell did he say?
It concerns me because, you go ahead, Brian.
I think we have the audio. Do we have the audio, JP? Why don't we? This is Demko speaking with the media on the injury that he's dealing with and kind of where he's at moving into camp in Vancouver.
There's not one case that we can find goaltender or hockey player in general. It's been wild. That's been part of the frustration is just not having a ton of information, and you're kind of just going into it blindfolded, and it can be scary at times. And I think we've done a good job handling that as a group with the medical staff and the organization, and doing the best we can in that front. but yeah, we haven't found a single hockey player. We've found, maybe less than 5 soccer guys, just random things like that. It's not too concrete.
So he's got a lower body muscular injury. And maybe he's got O's issue, and you got to show him how to fold the sod over and get that back moving, or whatever the issue is in terms of the lower body. Maybe you can inspire Thatcher Demko. Get the life coach out to Vancouver. Yeah. But that sounds like a guy who's searching. That sounds like a guy who's pretty scared because he's talking about an injury that nobody in hockey can relate to.
That's the scary part, Brian. It's like he can't even get on the ice. To my knowledge, he's not even skating.
No, he's not.
Well,
no one's got whether he is on the ice or not. No one's got any background information to say this is how you handle this. So they're like, that didn't sound cool, man. I don't know.
Yeah, my understanding, and I thought I saw it today. He's taking shots. He's on the ice.
Okay,
but.
I thought he just wasn't prepared to play anywhere close to it.
I just it's concerning because he's taking shots, he's doing all of these things, but I don't know if it's to a point where he's like, I don't have enough strength in this particular muscle or whatever, and it hasn't gotten to 100, or maybe it's a push muscle side to side. There's too many question marks, but he was skating on his own today, just like he was in the playoffs last year. That's the crazy part. He was doing exactly what he did today in the playoffs 6 months ago or 4 months ago or whatever it was. So that's what's concerning for me about Demko.
Right. It's been lingering the whole time.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of stuff that that's a black cloud over your camp. That really is. And that's, obviously in Toronto, there's things that they're going to have to deal with, the contractual stuff and all the parties involved. They're trying to keep it quiet. I don't know what that means. We all get asked about it every day. What do you think is going to happen here, Marner, Tavares? We don't know. And they're not going to publicly negotiate, or at least they're not as of now, which is a change of pace compared to where it was in the past with Marner in particular. But they're trying to quiet it down. They're trying to focus simply on hockey. And they've got a healthy group, and everyone's here, and everyone's accounted for. And there's no holdouts, and there's no RFA signings, like even Nick Robertson. He signed, showed up, and he's on the ice and playing. And that's a positive sign if you're a guy like Craig Berube who needs that. Like, he needs to hit the ground running here. And they got high expectations, and really there's nothing in their own way other than themselves if they want to put themselves in that spot. It's a real opportunity here for the Leafs to have a really good camp, 2.5, 3 weeks, and then before you know it, we're into early October and it's go time. All right, Bruce Boudreau in about 15 minutes on what he thinks Craig Berube is dealing with day one of camp with a new team here in Toronto. Other storylines throughout the NHL, including this expansion talk that's heating up again.
Here it is, man.
It's a formality. It's going to happen. They're going to 34, 36 teams. They're going 100%. To do it.
What are you talking about?
They're doing it. They're going to do it. There's some meeting coming up. I think it was Andy Strickland reported on that. And Kevin Weeks tweeted out today. He's like, I'm telling you, and I've been saying it for a while, 34 to 36 teams, it's coming. They're going to add 2 to 4 more teams to the NHL.
I think it's 2, and we know the cities already. It's going to be Houston, and it's going to be in Atlanta.
Houston and Atlanta, 2 just great hockey markets.
Well, I will say, I played hockey in Houston.
Markets.
It's not bad, but Houston's a massive city. Like, they'll find the fan base there. They'll be fine. Like,
Atlanta's a massive city, and they've tanked out twice.
Guys,
100%.
I don't care about what cities they're going to, but isn't there enough evidence in the league right now? There's just not enough good players. Like, give me a break.
That's the thing. How do you fill out that many
rosters? The league is so watered down right now. There's 4 good players on every team, and the rest are scrubs making $7 million. It's like, what are we doing? There's not enough good players.
Yeah, well, that's it, man. It's like if you're the union, you love this.
Yes, of course. More jobs. Everybody's playing, whatever. But it's like, you talk about quality on ice, I'm telling you, that'll be a big hit.
Yeah. It's already watered down too much. There's already too many teams that just are terrible. And, these new teams, they're gonna get a bump because of the expansion rules. It's going to be like Vegas, like Seattle. They're not going to start terribly. They're going to hit the ground. Not running necessarily, but in a position to be competitive. But yeah, like if we get to 36 teams, I that just seems absurd,
dude. Like, if you want an example of how watered down the league is, look at the offer sheets the St. Louis Blues tossed out there this year. Broberg and Holloway got offer sheeted, and they got the players. No disrespect to the players. Good players. But they got offer sheeted. It was like, we got to have those guys from Edmonton, Broberg and Holloway.
I mean, I told you, those guys are good players, but the league has changed, right? Like it isn't. The teams aren't letting their top talent get to offer sheet material. That's really what it is. You know, like when's the last time the top tier, like Kotkaniemi, that was kind of like a.
He's not top tier, but
exactly.
Sebastian
That's my
Aho
point.
was. Aho was the last one, and.
Right. And that was like almost a favor. They offered him $8 million. Like it was a favor to Carolina. They got him at $8 million.
They got a great deal in the end, yeah. And they felt slighted, but in the end, they actually got an incredible deal. But I mean, Broberg was not a full NHL player last year. He was not an established NHLer. That's just a fact.
Played 7 or 8 good games in the playoffs, and he got offered.
And he got offered for over $4 million or whatever it was a year.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is crazy, and I guess maybe we'll see more of that, as we move forward. But that's coming. Bruce Boudreau will join us. Luke Wilson coming up at 5. We turn the page on week 2, move ahead to week 3. We're on to week 3. We're on to Cincinnati. We got Jets Pats tonight, and Al's brother is going to make his triumphant return. The ayahuasca retreat, like I said earlier in the week, was a massive success. He is seeing the board clearly. He will return with tremendous information and some gut instinct, right? That's a big part of what he was doing out there. He wanted to make sure he found that gut instinct, and he's found it, and he feels great about where he's at. Hayes and Bro on the clock with the pick tonight. So that's coming up just after 5 o'clock. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bruce Boudreau coming up here in a moment. Tough news for the Jays last night, and Bo Bichette in particular. I guess the news came down today. A fractured finger, back on the IL, done. See you later.
Terrible season for him, man.
Two games he comes back for, and he fractures his finger.
Wasn't it?
No, it was 2. He came back.
Yeah.
I mean, they're into Game 3 of the series today. And, yeah, he's fractured his finger, and that's done. And, okay, we said it when he was returning. I don't know what he's returning for. I guess some positive vibes. And here's your answer. Here's your answer on the positive vibes, is that he's done for the year.
Yeah.
And that's that.
That stinks, though.
That's when you know to pack it in and just go to Florida, get it looked at, and don't come back.
Yeah, and the issue is now, like, you're into your off season, and it's a big one for him. And he won't. I don't know when he can start swinging the bat. Like when can he start to feel comfortable in the cage and preparing? And you're going to take October off anyway. Maybe you take November off, and maybe ultimately it's the best thing for him. Just get out. But it's an all-around just miserable season for Bo Bichette.
It's a kick in the junk too, because people talk about like being in sports. Golfers talk about it. They're in their own thoughts a lot. They're on their own a lot, traveling by themselves. Mm-hmm. When you're injured like that for that amount of time, as he's been in the last couple of years, and then you finally get to the end of the tunnel, like you're like Andy Dufresne crawling underneath, and you finally see the light, and then you get one game, and you get your hand hurt, and it's like, what do I need to do?
What are we doing here?
Well, and that was the thing. Like when they scratched him last night, they said contusion. So you're hoping, it's just a bruise, whatever, it'll be fine. And then today the news breaks that Andy Dufresne couldn't get across the river, man.
He couldn't get out of the feces. He couldn't get out of the feces he was crawling through.
Couldn't get out. It's not a bruise. It's broken. And see you later. Thanks for coming out.
Here's maybe a thought, like kind of from a business standpoint. He's had a dreadful year. Okay, but if you look at him and you believe, if you believe he's a cornerstone player, now this is up to Jay's management and ownership and all of that. Do you think you try and get him in we'll call it a moment of maybe
weakness?
Weakness, yeah. Like could you get him on a deal and go, hey, we'll give you a long-term deal because we believe in you. It's a reasonable number, but it's not through the roof.
I don't know, Noodles, because I'm not sure if they're convinced anymore.
I agree.
That's the question, right? Like with Bichette, you look at the last year and a half, and this year a lot of it was injury-related, but the numbers, they're staggering. Like they are staggering numbers when you look at them. And he played in about half the games, and the stats project to be terrible. I mean, you can't sugarcoat the season that Bo just had, and even
terrible.
the season before, there were times where it was kind of ugly for him as well. So I'm not, unless it's like such a significant low ball where it's such an insult to the guy that he's just going to say, "Get the hell out of here." I don't think that you're going to see that happen. I mean, it's going to be a really significant offseason in terms of the role of Bo Bichette, his future, what happens, where he's at, his mind frame coming into the season next year, especially if he's a Blue Jay and they have high hopes again next year. He's going to have to perform. He's going to have to stay healthy, and he's going to have to play and be a lot better. All right, here's a longtime NHL head coach, our TSN hockey analyst, Bruce Boudreau, joining us here on Overdrive. How you doing, Bruce?
I'm doing well, guys. How are you?
We're doing very well. Day one of camp. You get on the ice for the first time like Craig Berube did today. You went through it many times throughout your career. Is there anything in particular you felt that had to be established? What do you think every NHL coach, or at least what you thought was important to establish day one of camp?
Well, especially if you're a new guy, you had to establish right away of what your discipline and everything else. You can't let guys get away with anything. I mean, the passes have got to be on, and you got to stop it right away. For example, if you're a supply teacher at school and the kids start getting to know that they can get away with little things by the end of your tenure as a supply teacher, they're not listening to you at all. So if I'm Craig, I mean, he's got a reputation. He was a tough guy. He's coming in. He's going to be stern. He's going to be wanting everything at a high pace, and he's going to stay to his guns. So I mean, I don't think you would be getting guys screwing around, or like, for example, if there's a whistle and he wants them in there, they better get their butts in there quick right away, or he's gonna mention it. He's gonna set the tone on the first day of camp, because that's the way it's gonna continue to be for the rest of the year.
Brucey, William Nylander has taken a center ice. What do you think's the most important factor on this being successful?
I mean, finding enough really good wingers to go with these guys. I mean, if Tavares was center too, I don't know, was Tavares on the wing or was Tavares...
No, he's playing center today at skate. Can you hear us, Bruce?
I mean, and to have enough good wingers, because sounds like they want to put three scoring lines together. When you look at them bringing Pacioretty into camp and having guys like Easton Cowan and Mitten coming in, they want to be like, they've always been a great offensive team, and I thought they'd be going a little more on a defensive side. But if they have Nylander at center, I think they want to go pretty good offensively this year, and they've always been one of the best.
Bruce, what do you make of this team now as far as the changes that Tree made in the offseason? Do you feel that they were upgraded and it's the right moves to make this a more well-rounded team?
First of all, let me say, I would like Nylander on the wing. My concept, let me start with that, is I always had the Andy Murray way that he taught me was, you have a scoring line, you have a secondary scoring line, you have a third line that is a responsible checking line that can score, and you have an energy line. And I think if you're trying to make it too thin of a lot of offense, I think you're not going to succeed. But that being said, I think they upgraded their defense, which is something they needed to do. I still think their defense is a little small. I mean, they've got Ben Watt, 6'4", and Hakanpää at 12'8", but everybody else is around 6 foot, 6'1". So I'm a little worried about that, because if you look at all the teams that win these days, they win in the playoffs with a big defense. So I'm a little worried, but I think they've upgraded their talent. They've got at least 8 defensemen that can play in the NHL, which is really, really solid. I mean, they've always had a great offensive team, and I think, if their power play can improve over what they did in the playoffs, I think they'll be pretty solid.
With Bruce Boudreau, we were talking about the Thatcher Demko situation in Vancouver. Bruce, where he's dealing with this muscular issue, and he sounds frustrated, and he sounds as if he's really not prepared to play, and it's been that way for quite some time. Can you put yourself in the skates of Rick Tocchet, the head coach out there? What kind of, I guess you can. Yes, you definitely can.
I guess I can, yeah.
Yes, you can.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the idea of the kind of black cloud hanging over a camp when your superstar goalie has no idea when he's going to play.
It's troublesome. I'm telling you, we had the first year I was in Van. I mean, Demko was all world, and I think from the time I got there, and it wasn't because of the systems or anything else, but we were the 5th best defensive team in the league. And then when he goes down, something usually not good is happening. And if he's in that situation now, I mean, if they're going to depend on Seeloffs, which granted had a really good beginning to his career, but he's still very young. It was only 2 years ago that he was in the East Coast League and as a rookie. And so it's troublesome for the team because they rely on him so much. And I'll be the first one to tell you, without goaltending, I don't care how good your team is, it's going to be a struggle.
Yeah, big time. And that's the thing about getting into camps. You know, we were saying this prior to coming on, having you on, that, you know, the Leafs they've got everyone available. Everyone's healthy, everyone's signed, everyone's ready. And yet, you know, you look at other places throughout the league, Swayman in Boston, the Demko situation in Vancouver. There's a couple of guys who have signed today, RFAs who have signed recently, like in Detroit and elsewhere. But when you're missing players, you know, as a coach, how do you streamline that, Bruce, or how do you push that out? Because, you know, on the record, every coach goes, "We're just focused on who's here." That can't be true if you got star players who aren't there. I mean, no one really believes that.
Well, no one believes it, but everybody says it. But that's what else can you say? Like, you can't say,
right.
"Oh man, we're not going to win without our players back." But I'll tell you, there's every coach that doesn't have one of their star players back. As soon as practice is over, he's going home and he's crying to his wife that he wishes he had that guy back because you need him, and players need. Like, it's crazy to me that how important training camp is for every athlete. Now, I know you have to get your money, and I know you got to stay strong, and sometimes it's a game of who can blink first and everything. But boy, missing training camp, I've never seen it work for. The only person I've ever seen it work for is Kucherov when he missed the whole year and was great in the playoffs. But I firmly believe he was ready to play about a month before the season was over. They just couldn't play him because of the salary cap, and he practiced. That's my guess. But you need training camps, and coaches want everybody there because the other thing coaches want is they want to get to their lineup as quick as possible. Scouts want to see the drafted players. GMs want to see the prospects. The coaches want to get to their team. And if they could cut after 5 days and get down to 28 players, they would do it in a heartbeat, especially coaches with new teams, because they want to get their systems straight and their systems down, and they need that time to do it.
Brucey, what's the marching orders for a head coach in the NHL with a PTO? Like, is it just like this guy's on a PTO, you can handle it as you wish, or is it like you kind of like to see him in favorable positions? How does that whole transaction work?
It's an interesting question because every time I've had a PTO and my GM, you would to talk the guy in, because there's a lot of good veterans that are on PTOs right now. And you could take Pacioretty. I'm sure they had the conversation one of two ways, that, hey, listen, there's a spot open. If you come in and show us what you can do, you're going to make the team, and you'll probably just sign for this amount. Okay, that's the one avenue. The other avenue is if, agents know the player, and the team says, okay, we'll bring him in, but he's not going to make the team, but we're going to play him in 3 or 4 exhibition games just so he can show himself, and maybe he'll prove to somebody else that he can play. But the player will know that going in. I've never had a player that I've come in that we've gotten a guy and he hasn't been told that he's got a chance to make the team, or he's just here to show his stuff and be an extra veteran. Because as you know, every exhibition game, you need 8 veterans in the lineup. And so sometimes if you're bringing a guy in just to play him because you don't have enough guys for the preseason games, then that's what they're going to do. But I mean, in Pacioretty's case, I got to believe he had other suitors, and they would have said, listen, if you come in here and you do your job, this is what our goal is. We're going to try to do this, and if you do well, you're going to make the team. That's what I think happened.
Well, and from that standpoint, like, is it simply the GM that's making that call, or how much involvement would the coach have in terms of, I guess, evaluating how the player even looks?
Well, the coach is going to help evaluate. There's no doubt. And there's a lot of coaches. Like my last year in Vancouver, I wanted to get guys on tryouts because we didn't have a very deep lineup on the third and fourth lines. So I mean, but we didn't invite one player, and we said we were going to pick up guys on waivers, which we never did anyway. But those are the kind of conversations that go in. You either think, okay, we're not going to have anybody in camp on a tryout because we're going to pick up a guy on waivers, or you go the other way and you invite guys on tryouts and may the best man stick type thing. So I don't know what the Leafs are thinking and how they're thinking, but that's the way I think it went myself.
Okay. Well, we'll see. I mean, it's early here, but, I mean, these games come up quickly, too, don't they, Bruce? Like, the whole league's playing this weekend, and
3 days.
I mean, yeah.
3 days.
It's just immediately. You're on the ice, and it's go time. Like, is there any benefit to that? I mean, I know the owners make some money, but do the players and coaches really benefit from playing games that quickly into camp?
Well, again, this is the way it's always gone on the teams that I've been on. The first game, like, you're supposed to have 8 veterans, but if the GMs get together, they can cut it down to 5 or 6. So the first 2 games are usually the American League players and the prospects. And then after the 3-day rule gets done, then they send a lot of the juniors back, the free agents back, and then they get into games where the players are actually playing. Like, I mean, not every team wants to play games, and I know players don't want to play the games early. They want time. So you very rarely see your number one goalie playing till the 3rd or 4th preseason game, and your top players don't play till at least the 3rd game, usually in the preseason. So I mean, the first couple games, even though they come so early, and you don't want anybody hurt, they're usually prospects, draft choices, and American League players that are playing in those games.
Bruce, how big of a difference to when you were coaching recently to when you started playing pro was the difference in fitness testing at training camp?
Oh my goodness! I mean, it was quite like I remember my first camp in Toronto. We were told to do 25 sit-ups and 25 push-ups, and then we had to run one lap around the Blues in the section, and if we could do that, we were physically fit to play. The first, and then you just scrimmage for a week, and that's it. You'd be probably put into 4 teams. You scrimmage for a week, and then all of a sudden they made cuts. Roger Nielsen was probably the first coach that had real good testing, and you had to either ride a bike or run 5.5 miles is what he made us run the first day at camp. Torts has done kept that up and done a little bit of that. But I mean, the testing they do is incredible. Plus, today's player only takes maybe 2 weeks off during the summer anyway. Then they're working out and they're training all the time. I mean, back in the 70s and 80s, I mean, they didn't do nothing till the start of August, or most of the players didn't do anything, and they came to training camp to get in shape. Now everybody is in shape right away.
I love it. All right, Bruce. Well, it's going to be a fun season. We're just getting rocking here. We'll do it again soon. Thank you for this.
Can't wait. Take care, guys.
You got it, Bruce Boudreau. I love that. 25 push-ups, 25 sit-ups, and a jaunt around the Blues, and you're good.
Yeah.
Imagine someone that couldn't do that.
That's the amazing thing is a couple guys couldn't pass.
Yeah.
Multiple guys were like, the Blues? I'm not doing I can't get around that.
25 sit-ups? Come on now.
Come
what are you
on,
doing
man.
here?
What are we talking about here? It's the National Hockey League. Let's not get stupid.
I've told you guys this. I think I've told you this. I don't know if I've ever said it on air. I remember Stevie Thomas told me when he turned pro, he said the warm-up was when you skated around out on the ice before practice. He said there were guys out there that would put their gloves on the boards and skate around with a coffee and talk. So he said, like, I think Dave Farish, and he was naming a couple like veteran guys. It might have been with the Leafs, I guess. But they put the gloves on the boards, had a coffee in their hand, and would skate around in their gear. Then the coach would come out and go, all right, guys, let's get to practice here. Guys would go put the coffee down, get the gloves, and away they would go.
Unreal.
Isn't that
Imagine
crazy?
skating around, drinking a coffee right before a practice in the National Hockey League.
After an 8-0 loss.
Crushed the night before, and then over to the Madison until 2 a.m. and just a massive night.
Can you imagine, like, Pat Burns after a 7-0 loss going out there and seeing a guy with no gloves, no stick, and a coffee yucking it up with someone?
Yucking it up like... I swear to God, we will have to have Stumpy on to tell that story. I swear on my life he told me that story.
Okay. Yeah, that would have been early 80s Leafs, man, for sure.
Yeah.
That I don't know if John Brophy was probably a little bit beyond that, but that might have been around when Stumpy came in. I think Harold Ballard might have still been the owner at that point.
Crazy.
But, just throw the gloves over there and grab a couple of coffees for the boys.
You see your top player just for the – you imagine if they started camp today and, Matthews and Nylander get out a little early. They're skating around with a Tim Hortons or a Starbucks.
Right.
Having a chat.
Jonas tweeting it out.
up.
Matthews and Marner are chatting over their plans for practice.
I just don't understand
coffee.
it. Like, you've been sitting in the dressing room for an hour, but you want to go shoot the breeze wheeling around on your skates?
I don't know the reasoning why, but I'm telling you, he told me that story, and I still – like, how you bank a story because it's so crazy? You're like,
good.
I can't believe that happened in the NHL.
All right, we need confirmation on that.
Yeah.
Someone,
okay.
one of you two, I know you can get to him. Get to Steve Thomas and find that out. Confirm or deny. We have to.
Exactly.
All right, Luke Wilson coming up in studio at 5. My list on 5 reasons why it's going to be different with the Maple Leafs this season. That's coming up at 5:30. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, it's that time of year where baseball teams are celebrating clinching a playoff spot. It's happened a lot in baseball recently. It will happen a lot over the next couple of weeks. You punch a ticket, whether you win the division, finish a wild card, it doesn't matter. You party. You party. Yeah. And the Brewers recently had a party, and our boy Bob Uecker was in there, a.k.a. Harry Doyle from the movies Major League. Do you want to hear?
He might be 90 years old.
I believe he is 90 years old. And I think he only calls home games.
Dude, think about it, Hayes. He was an older guy in Major League, the movie.
Right. That came out in 1989.
Yeah.
35
he was an
years
older
ago.
dude
then. As
then.
an old guy at the end of the road of his broadcasting career back then. And he used to do those Miller Lite commercials. And they were so good. Remember he did this stuff at WrestleMania with Andre the Giant, and he's choking him out at WrestleMania 3 or whatever
He's
it was.
90. He's 90
He's
years
90.
old.
Bob Uecker's 90.
Yeah.
So this is some of the video, some of the audio. Bob Uecker is celebrating with the Brewers last night, them clinching a playoff spot.
There is no one who epitomizes a champion the way this man does right here. There is no one out here. What an example for us to be with every single day. Bob Uecker. No doubt about it.
I love it.
He just starts yelling, I peed my pants, which is a little bit strange.
Just a bit outside.
But Bob was right in the middle of things last night. 90 years old, still in the clubhouse partying with the boys.
Dude, that's great, man. You talk about,
amazing.
Obviously, when you wake up every day is a blessing. That's just cool experience.
Yeah.
Cool experience for that cat.
And that guy loves the Brewers, man.
Loves them, man.
Loves the Milwaukee Brewers. He's been calling their games forever. I believe he played for the Brewers. And he's just an all-time great character. There's no one like Bob Uecker, and he still loves the team, and
awesome.
It's just amazing to see. And that's the cool stuff. Like you see that with, broadcasters of teams when they've been around for a long time. They love the team. The team loves them. The players love them. The managers, the coaches, all the
Everything.
fans.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like everyone just relates to them because they're kind of representing both sides of it.
Yeah.
They're the voice for the fans, but they're also the voice of the team in many ways. And, Bob Uecker, he loves baseball, loves the Brewers, and loves a good time. And he had one last night. All right, hour 2 coming up. Luke Wilson will join us to set the scene on Week 3 in the NFL. Jets, Patriots tonight. Al's brother will be making his return. He's back. Hayes and Bro back and on the clock tonight. So Al's brother will make his triumphant return in hour 2. And my list, Hazy be listing at 5:30. Why it'll be different this year for your Toronto Maple Leafs. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.